Cities are defined by their cultures. Those cultures could entail sports or business or certainly arts and entertainment. Oklahoma City is thriving in all of these areas. But who makes that all happen? This Town OKC explores the people behind the cultures, their origins, their motivations, their challenges, and their dreams. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. I've been in this town for over 50 years with a front row seat to seeing the culture grow from a dusty bus stop on the Southern Plains to a flourishing destination. Join me as we meet the folks behind the culture on This Town OKC. Scott Munz, thank you very much for being here with me on This Town OKC.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
We're recording this in late June of 2025, so we're not going to get into what is coming up next month or, this fall or anything like that. A little bit. You're with the State Fair of Oklahoma.
I am.
I should have looked up your official title.
It's pretty lofty. Executive Vice President of Marketing and Sales. Ooh, I like to say fair spokesperson, but
yeah. So this is an oral history of you. So let's start way back when. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from New York originally. I was actually born in Brooklyn, and I grew up in Hicksville, out on Long Island, me and Billy Joel.
Yeah.
So I have that.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you happen to know him?
Well, I knew of him. He played in high school bands at the time, so we would see him playing at, there used to be a thing called the SJS, Sophomore, Junior, Senior Mixer. And his band, either the Lost Souls or the Commandos, would be one of the bands that would typically play. He would play in Battle of the Bands. So we would go down to Levittown Hall, which was at the end of my street, and there'd be 2 or 3 bands, and he'd be on the Hammond B3 organ on one of them. And then that band turned into the Hassles, which probably was his first commercial success. And he had a few singles, and then he went on from there, and the rest is rock and roll history.
But you never got to hang out with him.
Oh, never got to hang out with him. I mean, I had a friend that lived, it was one of those things. Nobody really thought much of him back then, but now all of a sudden everybody remembers him as his best friend.
Right.
And I had a friend who was living down the street from him, so he was certainly closer than I was. But no, we didn't exchange Christmas cards. He didn't invite me to any of his weddings or anything like that. But obviously it's part of my past, and it was the soundtrack to my life. I mean, when you think about Billy Joel songs, I've been to the Parkway Diner. I've been to the Village Green. I've been to the Miracle Mile. I've dropped a dime in the jukebox and played a song about New Orleans. I remember the Italian restaurant he's referencing and scenes from Italian restaurants. So it's part of my history.
There you go. I have a similar experience in that the Allman Brothers Band played my junior-senior prom. And I did pass them in the doorway of a music store one day.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously everybody knows he's from Hicksville. Some people profess or try to make him from Levittown, but he's really not. He's from Hicksville.
Okay.
And he acknowledges it. He went back when his music teacher from Hicksville High School recently retired. He went back for that ceremony. He's donated money to the band program at Hicksville High School. So, no, Hicksville's his hometown. I don't care what the people say about Levittown.
Okay, so getting back to you, from Hicksville, where did you go to college?
I went to college upstate New York, south of Buffalo. State University College at Fredonia, 50 miles south of Buffalo on Lake Erie. Very, very cold. It started snowing the end of September and didn't quit till Easter.
Now didn't the Marx Brothers have a movie?
Fredonia, right there. He was, Groucho, I think, was the mayor of Fredonia. They had 2 E's in that. I only had one. We can only afford one where I went to school. But
what was your major?
Well, I actually have a degree in psychology, which I spent, actually it took me 5 years to get 4. And I say having an undergraduate degree in psychology is saying like you've wasted the last 4 years of your life. But you got to remember, I graduated high school in 1969, so it was either go to college or go to Vietnam.
Right.
So I chose the route of going to college. I had a 220, I think, draft number when they did the lottery, so I was kind of safe in that sense. But I enjoyed my time in Fredonia. That's where I cut my eye teeth on the music business. I started promoting concerts in Fredonia, and then the rest is history.
Well, let's go down that avenue then.
Well, there was a thing, and I don't know how many of your listeners would have been involved with this when they were school. So there's the Student Government Association, where all your student fees go to, and then they fund different clubs. And one of the clubs that they funded was the Union Board of Governors, they called it. And they were responsible, this is really showing my age, because we were responsible for doing concerts, coffee houses, and movies. And the coffee house component was downstairs in the Union. They turned the lights down low at night and did a coffee house setting.
Yeah.
Had a little acoustic act playing or whatever. But that's where I started buying talent and producing shows. I did a show one time with the Eagles that Billy Joel actually opened up. I've got a poster in my office that says Eagles with Billy Joel, and the tickets were $250 for students and $350 for non-students. So we did logging.
But you didn't think to have anyone sign that poster.
No, at the time, again, hindsight being 2020. No, I wish I had somebody sign it. That was back when the Eagles were only 4 guys, and Billy Joel was on his own. He had first come out with Cold Spring Harbor was his first kind of commercial. It was the Hassles, then Attila, then Cold Spring Harbor when he was out on his own. But we did Loggins and Messina. We did Shawn Phillips. We did Commander Cody. We did B.W. Stevenson. We did an array of talent.
Oh my goodness! You're talking about the people I listened to back in those days too.
Oh yeah, I mean that was the like I said, I was in college in the early '70s, and that was the music of that decade, if you will.
Oh, and it was great music too.
Oh yeah,
I saw BW a couple of times playing the Civic Center.
Yeah, no, he had his run.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure if he's still alive anymore.
I don't think he is.
I don't think he is either. I bet he wasn't, but I don't want to prematurely put him in his grave.
He sure was great to listen to.
Oh yeah, no, he was enjoyable. So and that was beginning when Loggins and Messina, when Columbia Records first put them together. Obviously, Jim Messina had come out of Poco.
Right.
Kenny Loggins was just kind of kicking around as a solo artist, and somebody decided to put it together. And I actually had an album on a pre-press when Columbia Records had them at the bitter end in New York City, and that was when basically it was sitting in their first album. And that was the songs that they played, House at Boot Corner, and the rest of them, they were on that sitting in album. So
I had my first taste of the music business in college as well. I was working at the campus radio station at Georgia State University and would get backstage tickets, backstage passes to go interview the acts that were coming through town.
Oh, yeah, it was a great way. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed my entree into the music business, and obviously it's just been continuing ever since.
So after college, how did you continue this music business industry?
Well, myself and a partner, a guy named Bob Burwell, who's passed now, and I'll get to him more on him in a minute. But when we were in college, we had an advisor. His name was Bob D'Angelo. And Bob was actually being brought to Tulsa to be the architectural consultant and managing director of the new Performing Arts Center there. So we didn't know where we were going to go. We didn't know where we were going to start our concert promoting business. A little sidebar: while we were at college, we were approached by Harvey and Corky Productions to work with them on buying the talent, and the Harvey and Corky was Harvey Weinstein.
Oh my goodness!
So that's a little something. Maybe it doesn't resonate all that well with people these days, but it was kind of prolific before he got into all this trouble, being such a well-known movie producer, and to think that he started his concert business or started in the concert business in Buffalo, New York. But so Bob D'Angelo was being brought to Tulsa, so we decided that we would move to Tulsa, and he would be our into the city, if you will. We felt that we needed an ally, a confederate, whatever you want to call him, that would help us navigate the political waters of a new town. So we moved to Tulsa. We were supposed to be financed from a guy out of Buffalo, and then he fell through. So we picked up some local financing from a guy who owned Whiskers, which was a club over in Tulsa. Long time ago. His name was Gary Bentley, and his dad owned a car lot, and he thought he wanted to be in the concert business. So we did 2 shows. One was Shawn Phillips, and one was B.W. Stevenson, oddly enough. And they were ill-fated and lost money, and his dad got on him, and he got out of the concert business pretty quick. So Bob went to work for the Jim Halsey Company. I don't know if you know that name.
I
Jim
do
Halsey,
indeed, yeah.
Was Roy Clark's manager for a long time. He had a very successful country agency in Tulsa that way further on, then he sold that to William Morris, and then they set up the Nashville office, and a lot of the agents that worked for the Halsey Company in Tulsa went on to be the heads of agencies in Nashville. When, there was a time when there were agencies in L.A. or New York, nobody was thinking about the middle of the country. And then all these agencies, CAA, William Morris, Paragon, they decided that they wanted to have a Nashville branch because, country music was taking off and they wanted to be represented. So all of Halsey's agents, the family tree from the Halsey agency into all those agencies was just phenomenal. And then I actually went to work at Cain's Ballroom.
Really?
Yeah, I was working for a guy named R.C. Bradley. Some of your listeners may have known R.C. He worked over at Cat Radio when Bill Lacey had it. And I was working with R.C. Bradley and Jeff Nix and Dino Economist when Larry Schaefer, who had Little Wing Productions, had a windfall on a Peter Frampton show at the fairgrounds and turned around and bought the ballroom from Marie Myers for, I think, $44,000.
Oh.
And I was working for, like I said, Nix and Bradley at the ballroom, and then I continued over with Larry, and then I went to work for Larry full-time. And I ran the ballroom during what I call its heyday. I know that it's had a nice resurgence of late with the Rogers family.
What years were those?
That was he bought it in 1977, so I was actually with Schaefer from 1977 to 1985.
Okay.
It was during the time when the Sex Pistols came through there. I think it was last year, we did a podcast with the OK Pop Museum for, believe it or not, the 45th anniversary of the Sex Pistols playing Cain's. We were one of 12 dates they played, so I have that in my history, if you will.
Were you there when
Sid Vicious or Johnny Rotten? Yeah, Sid Vicious, I think it was.
Punch the Wall?
Oh, yeah, no, I was there. I mean, I was responsible for paying the band, so those two guys, Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten, was sitting in my office, and I had my back to them because I was working at my desk, and they were sitting in some chairs behind me, and I was getting the money ready, writing the receipt out and stuff like that, and they're laughing in their Cockney accents, and they were actually putting cigarettes out in each other's arm, and they were all sweaty from the performance. I really didn't understand it then. I don't really understand it now, but yeah, I mean, I met Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten. They sat in my office and collected the money for the night. And then all the big, back then, the way artists were broken were record labels would put acts out and subsidize them. So we did Van Halen as a $500 band. We did The Police. We did Pat Benatar. We did anybody you could think of. We did the Ramones. We did the Cramps. I mean, we just did. And at the time, like I said, the record labels would put a band out like Van Halen, give them a bus, give them $200,000 to subsidize their expenses, and then they'd try to sell. And they were no name, they're out of Pasadena, wherever they were from. And I mean, nobody knew Van Halen. It was even before the album came out.
Right.
But Larry took a chance. That was the way things were done then. You took a chance on a band. You broke the baby band. You took them through the levels and the steps as they raised up the popularity ladder and into the different venues. So Larry paid him $500, and Van Halen played, and the Police played, and Pat Benatar played. So I mean, there was some tremendous. And then of course all the country. Back then it wasn't Red Dirt; it was Outlaw Country. So David Allan Coe, Alvin Crow and the Pleasant Valley Boys, Asleep at the Wheel, Ray Wiley Hubbard. I mean, anybody you can think of that was anybody in the country field has played Cain's. Cain's is a historic venue.
Yes.
Very, very even still revered and popular today. I mean, people, when they're out on tour now, the whole complexion of the touring business has changed. But, when people are doing tours on that level and even higher, I mean, they want to go and play the historic Cain's because of its significance to Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys and KVOO and their noon broadcasts. So it's a big deal to play Cain's Ballroom.
So you were booking shows at Cain's, running Cain's, 77 to 80?
No, I did it 77 to about 85. I didn't book them. In full transparency, I ran the operation.
Okay.
Larry booked the bands, and at the same time, he was booking shows over here in Oklahoma City. I mean, Little Wing Productions was a legitimate concert promoter production company back in the day before they were all consolidated. There was Contemporary Productions out of St. Louis. There was Chris Fritz out of Kansas City. There was Beaver Productions out of New Orleans. There was Stone City out of San Antonio. Little Wing Productions out of Tulsa. So,
I remember a couple of those names. Certainly, Little Wing. They put on a lot of shows.
Yeah, so we did a lot of shows at the old Myriad that they're currently tearing down or whatever. We've done Bob Seger in there. We grew Van Halen, if you will. We have the dubious honor of Van Halen being the last rock show to ever play the Civic Center Music Hall, because after that they decided they didn't want that element in there. So
right.
there hadn't been and I don't know what year that was. It was probably 73 or 4, but there hadn't been a rock show in the Civic Center Music Hall since then. And just any foreigner, any act that would Journey, anybody, any arena act came through Oklahoma City, and they either played the Myriad, the Fairgrounds Arena, or Lloyd Noble.
Yeah.
We did Kiss down at Lloyd Noble. We had to clear the backstage area when the 4 guys came in their limo because they didn't have their makeup on yet. They made a big deal about it. But Larry booked the stuff, and I was his basically operations guy. I have tremendous respect for Larry. I owe Larry a lot of what I know now. Larry is still alive. I see him every once in a while. He's getting up in age like I am, but he still promotes shows. He's still active. So I have tremendous respect for Larry.
So what was next?
So next up in my lifespan, if you will, was I went to work for Cowboy Bill Watts with Mid-South Wrestling, because Cowboy Jim Ross, who some of your listeners may know, worked for the WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call them, and is now with All Elite Wrestling. Jim was working a day job. He was my account. He was our account rep over at K95 Radio over in Tulsa. So he would be trying to sell us advertising for any of the country shows that would come through Cain's, or even at the Assembly Center or Fairgrounds Pavilion, because we did shows over in Tulsa besides just at Cain's.
Right.
And Jim had heard that Bill wanted to expand his operation. He liked the fact that I had worked a lot of the same buildings, whether it was in Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Barton Coliseum in Little Rock or up in Wichita, so wherever it was. So he approached me with the proverbial offer that I couldn't refuse. And I actually went to work for Cowboy Bill Watts in the wrestling business right at that point where he was expanding. Vince McMahon and the WWE just at that time had gotten the operation away from his dad. And before that time, there were territories spread out all around the country, and everybody respected the boundaries of those territories.
Okay.
They had local TV. They ran events in their region, in their territory. And then when Vince McMahon bought the promotion from his dad, he turned around and went up on cable, USA Network, and because he was seen across the country, how you made money in those days was you ran house shows, so that you would have to go to a given town to run an event at the Myriad or in St. Louis or in Kansas City or in Minneapolis, whatever it was. So he knew that he had to have the top star from each one of those territories, and that's when he went to Minnesota to Vern Gagne's territory and got Hulk Hogan. He came into the Midwest and took Junkyard Dog. He would go down to Florida. He got Dusty Rhodes. So he would be padding his roster so that when he took his show on the road into a given town, he had the star that people knew. What he didn't count on was the business was really based on the concept of people wanting to come out to see a live show because they left Nelly on the tracks at the last TV show, and they want to see how that good guy, bad guy was going to be resolved.
Yeah.
And he didn't really set it up that way. That's the way the territories were set up. But Vince didn't do that. But anyway, Vince turned the thing around. Obviously, he's an extremely successful individual, so he had something in mind, but not that in the beginning. So anyway, Bill made me an offer. I went to work for Bill for probably 6 or 8 years, and then in 1988, I was approached by Don Holtz, who was the president general manager at the time of the Fairgrounds. He had been the executive director or whatever his title was at Lloyd Noble, so I had known Don and Reba Jones, who ran the box office. I knew them from doing shows down at Lloyd Noble, and then when Don was brought up from Lloyd Noble to be the head guy at the fair, he was trying to figure out how could he expand his operation and wanted me to come in and do promotions at the Speedway. The Speedway was still up and functional at the time. So
right.
he knew that I had experience in running, whether it was, 25-cent hot dog night or 50-cent beer or a ladies' night with KXY for 96 cents, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I got started with Don in 1988. And then the person who was in my seat right now, a guy named Lynn Saunders, left to go to the L.A. County Fair, and Don wanted to talk to me about it. And at the time, I was traveling a bunch from the wrestling business, and I really wasn't enjoying the travel. The business had sold. Bill Watts sold to Jim Crockett. There was some consolidation going on in the wrestling business, so I'm backtracking a little bit. So there was consolidation when everybody was going on the national expansion. And Cowboy Bill Watts ended up selling to Jim Crockett, who had the NWA in the Carolinas. And then in turn, he sold to Ted Turner because Crockett was running the show on WCW on the Turner networks, WTBS.
Right.
That was the counter programming to McMahon being on the USA Network.
Ah.
So Ted Turner bought out Jim Crockett. So I worked for Ted Turner for a while. I had 9 Western states. We were just starting that expansion. It was a tough go at that time because the WWE was so strong. They would block us from the primary building. So, for example, we couldn't be in the, in the number 1 building in Dallas, or we couldn't be in the number 1 building in Phoenix or whatever. So we had to take a secondary position, and it really didn't work all that well. But anyway, I got tired of the travel. I just, when Don made me, wanted to know if I'd come to work for him full time, and Lynn Saunders left the operation. Then I jumped at the chance and actually moved here in '91.
Okay.
Up to that time, I was traveling and staying in a hotel 3 nights a week.
That does get old.
That gets very old, and it's. I wanted a family by then. I was getting up in age. I had already lost a relationship off of it from the travel. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to settle down. So I jumped at the chance. I said, I did the 1990 fair from a hotel room. And then I made the promise or commitment to Don that I would actually relocate here by June of 91, which is what I did. And I've been living over here ever since. I met a nice Midwest city girl, Lisa Atkinson. I'm happily married. I got 2 beautiful children. They've followed in my footsteps in the PR business. So
okay.
They work over at Candor PR. They're both thriving in their business over there. And one of them's actually getting married. Sierra will be married 2 weeks from this Saturday up in the Marlin Mansion.
Oh.
And then moving to San Francisco. So my life is very full and blessed. I'm very happy with what I do and my position in life. I just wish I had gotten to it sooner.
But here you are now.
Yeah.
And you've been here since 91, so that's 34 years.
Yeah, this is my 37th fair at the fair because Don gave me credit for starting in 88. Even though I wasn't over here full time, I actually was doing everything that I'm doing now. I just did it from a distance. I had one of the first portable fax machines that I'd carry in a box or whatever. In fact, when I first started at the fair, they didn't have a fax machine. They used my portable one, and it would print out on thermal paper, and it would last about 3 months, and then it would be so faded you couldn't see what it was.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what you do at the fair as executive vice president of what, promotions and marketing?
Yeah, again, fair spokesperson. We wear a lot of hats. We don't have a very layered organization there. We're a pretty thin staff. And what we're able to accomplish is quite amazing. On both the fair side, there is a fair staff, and then there's a year-round staff, and then there's some of us that lap over and do some work on both sides. So I get involved in some of the year-round stuff, and obviously I'm very instrumental on the fair side because I place all the advertising, all the traditional radio, television, print, outdoor, all of that comes through my office. I do all the new media stuff. I've got somebody on my staff, Holly Kenyon, who does a great job of doing the social media stuff and maintaining the website. I buy the talent for the Chickasaw Country Entertainment stage. I am the spokesperson, so if there's a need for an interview, either pre or post or during the fair, I'm the one that they need to come to and talk to. I'm the one that handles that. I handle the print interviews. And I won't say I'm a jack of all trades, but I do a lot of things there. We have a new president and CEO Kirk Slaughter took over for Tim O'Toole a couple of years ago, and he really, I think, values my historical or industrial or archive, whatever you want to call it,
institutional
knowledge of being there 37 years.
Yeah. But you're not involved with actually booking the shows during the fair or other concerts during the season?
No, well, we haven't really been in the concert business because the Jim Norick Arena, which is now out of commission, out of service, we're in the process of taking it down because of the new Ogini Coliseum. We haven't been in the concert business because it wasn't overly conducive to concerts anymore. It was back in the day when the expectations of the bands were a lot less than they are now.
Right.
Now they want to hang a bunch of stuff. It's difficult to rig in there. They need 10 dressing rooms. They've got, a 15 truck show. I mean, there was some, heavy asks, if you will, when a show, if anybody really if anybody really wants to see what goes on, go over there early on a concert day at the Paycom Center and see all the semis that are pulling in, unloading, parking across the street in the open lot. I mean, it's really, the shows have gotten very, very elaborate of late.
Yeah. Friend of mine used to run the Civic Center, and he told me the story of the first time Cats came through. I think he said it was something like a 12-truck show. And then the second time Cats came through under his watch, it was a 3-truck show. Yeah. It scaled down quite a bit.
No, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And I think there needs to be a market correction. Here I'm expressing my personal opinion. I think there needs to be a market correction on prices bands charge.
Oh, no doubt.
There are acts out there that are $1 million acts. There are people out there that are Luke Combs is not Luke Combs. I'm sorry. Jelly Roll is Luke Combs is $1 million act. Jelly Roll is a multi-million-dollar act. It's just ridiculous. Anybody worth their salt is in the $750,000 to $1.5 million range, and it's because they feel compelled to bring all that production out with them.
Right.
They're out there with, like I said, 17 trucks. The catering bill is $25,000 or $30,000 for one day. I mean, the decadence and excess in the concert business is just off the charts.
Right.
And I think that, and ultimately, all that stuff just gets passed on to the consumer.
Exactly.
I mean,
and then when Ticketmaster adds on their
fees, everybody's just piling on, and the consumer is just getting beat down with costs to go out for their discretionary dollar. Like I said very early on, and that was a long, long time ago, a $3.50 ticket for, now granted the Eagles and Billy Joel weren't then what they are now.
Right.
But still, a $3.50 ticket, now you're lucky if you get a show like that for $150.
Yeah.
And that's not even in the good seats.
Case in point, I recently bought tickets to see Paul McCartney in Tulsa in October 2025. My one and only chance to ever see a Beatle live. So I took it, bought just about the cheapest seats available in the pre-sale, and still it was $1,000 by the time everything is added up.
Oh yeah, it's crazy
for 2 seats.
And like I said, all that expense of all the production, all the the price of fuel, the staffing, the rigging, the equipment, everything. And I mean, you probably would have gone to see that show if they had a third of the production.
Exactly.
There. I don't think, you're wowed, but at the end of the day, you're not going to make a decision not to see Paul McCartney if that's somebody you want to see your only chance to see a Beatle. You're going to go.
I would relish the opportunity to see him alone on a stage.
Yeah.
Piano, guitar, nobody else.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd pay $500 for that, but I might.
Well, no, I mean, and I don't want to sound ridiculous with how frivolous I am with money, but at the end of the day, I think, certain people make a decision. I want to see that act. I don't care if it's Luke Combs, Jelly Roll, whomever it might be, Paul McCartney. You're going to make that decision, and yes, there may be a little angst in your decision because it is a $500 ticket, but at the end of the day, you want to see him because that may be your last chance to see a Beatle live.
Exactly.
I don't think you're going to say, well, I'm not going to do that. So, you may look at it a little differently, but I wish that would happen. And I've been preaching that for a long time, and nobody listens. I don't ever expect it to change. It's just there's just too much money out there.
Yeah.
But it just gets passed on to the consumer, and I think the consumer would just as soon get a little price break for maybe a little less expectation when they go to the show. But
let's talk about some of the more off-the-wall attractions every year at the State Fair. I seem to recall you telling me in years past about some of these weird shows that you would bring in, attractions that will play several times a day, like the pig races and things like that.
Yeah, we try to, I always say the people that come to the fair, we have to appeal to everybody from 8 to 80.
Yeah.
It's multi-generational, it's multi-ethnical, that's not even a word, multi-ethnicities.
Yeah.
But pig races are very popular. They have been for a long, long time. We've had different animal shows. We have had some oddities on the Carnival Midway that have kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, you got to realize, having been there for 36 fairs this year, we missed one in COVID 2020, obviously, so I can't say I had 37 fairs under my belt or will have 37 fairs under my belt, but 36. And there was a day when things were different on the Carnival lot. There were freak shows.
Yeah. And burlesque shows, stripper shows.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I remember that.
I do. When we finish this, I'll tell you.
They get a little racy, maybe.
I'll tell you that story after we finish.
I always thought the bearded lady had all her clothes on, but maybe. But I mean, there were things, and it has become unpolitically correct to have Lobster Boy there, or the bearded lady, or the smallest woman.
In the category of the fun stuff, like the pig races, what are, and all of a sudden I'm blank on some of the other shows that I've seen or heard about, but you certainly can recall some of the more eccentric acts that you've brought in.
Yeah, I mean, probably we had a thing, and this is a funny story. We promoted one year a 6-foot man eating chicken. And we had that on the Midway, and it was 50 cents to go in and see the 6-foot man eating chicken. And people paid their 50 cents, and they walked in there, and there was a 6-foot man sitting there eating a bucket of chicken.
Yeah.
And everyone go, oh man, nobody said I got to have my money back because they only paid 50 cents to walk in and see it. But you advertise 6-foot man eating chicken, and people think, well, let's see what this is going to be. Is this crackhead Bob or LSD Larry or whatever it is?
Where did you find the 6-foot man?
That man in reality rotated out depending on who was available to go sit in there and get in out of the heat and sun.
Just twist some arms and.
Yeah, well, it was a guy who worked on the Carnival lot. So if they needed a little break from operating a ride or a game, they just got a little break. They went in there, they got themselves a chance to eat some chicken and get out of the sun and sit in the shade for a while. So it was a rotating 6-foot man eating chicken.
Exactly.
Nobody said, hey, that's not because very few people went back to see it a second time. So nobody had any really comparison to say, well, that ain't the guy I saw yesterday. They paid their 50 cents. They had the joke. They had their laugh. They went out to tell other people about it, and the next day there was a different guy in there, and nobody was the wiser. We've had a very successful Zoppe's Italian Family Circus was very good for us. We've had strolling pianos. We've had dog acts on the plaza stage, we call it. It's the old Pubco stage up on the Circle. We've had stroving. We used to have Grandpa Cratchit, who would drive around in a cart or whatever, and he was a little puppet type thing, and he would interact with the kids. That was a fun thing. People would take their picture with it besides interacting on it, and he'd do a show once in a while. So, we try to program something for everybody, between the food and the creative arts, people that are interested in that. They want to see the crocheting and the miniatures and the porcelains and all the things over in the creative arts building and all the shopping that's in the Bennett Event Center. I mean, again, there's really something for everybody at the great state fair of Oklahoma.
I have a neighbor up the street who lives every year to display her quilting and her I don't want to say crochet, but her sewing.
Needlework or something?
Needlework, yeah. Yeah, and it's gorgeous stuff.
Oh yeah, and that appeals to a certain segment of the public, and the carnival appeals to another. And I think the one that is universally appealing is the food. I don't think anybody doesn't like to go to the fair to eat food.
All right. On that note, I understand there is big controversy about the original corn dog.
I'm not sure what that controversy would be. I know Fletcher's does very good. So you tell me. I mean, it's the O'Neill family out of Minnesota that have done the corn dogs at the Oklahoma State Fair for as long as I've been there.
I'm talking about the controversy that I'm aware of is who first invented the corn dog.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm afraid you stumped me there.
And
we'd have to Google that.
And I've had people at different corn dog booths say, well, we originated it. It's sort of like the margarita.
I don't know.
Who knows?
You know, you go down to Texas, obviously Fletcher's is the corn dog of the fair, if you will. And up here, the poncho dog, you know, and I guess somebody might say, well, a poncho dog is different than a corn dog. You know, ours are poncho dogs, and it's the O'Neill family, and they've been there since Teddy and Freddie O'Neill with their sister Leah first came to the fair, and now Leah's the only remaining O'Neill, and Teddy Jr. has, you know, come through with it. So
it seems to me that anything deep fried on a stick seems to be very popular at the fair.
Certainly. I mean, I think there's two components to primarily getting a food item to be accepted. Now, people's tastes are changing, so this may be a little antiquated. People go, oh, no, I don't want to eat anything like that. First off, if it's deep fried, you know, because you can deep fry anything. And I think Texas started it years ago when they did deep fried butter.
Yeah.
I really think deep fried butter was pushing the envelope a little bit. I will tell you that the way that stuff comes about is on a rainy day when the food vendors are standing around with not very many customers, and they start to think, what can I do to create a new food item? So they did deep fried butter, then they did deep fried Coca-Cola, which was, you know, basically just a dough ball soaked in Coke and deep fried, battered and deep fried, you know. But some of those things, you know, Snickers, Oreos, to each their own. I've got my own fair favorites. And the other important component, I think, to the success of food is it has to be walk-around food.
Right.
It's got to be either on a stick or easily consumed while you're walking.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to eat something with a fork. You certainly don't want to factor in a knife with that.
No.
Because then you got to sit down, which we do have places to sit down. So, I mean, we do try to accommodate that. But I think the real popular food items are, as I like to say, walk-around food. And I think that really adds to the popularity of corn. Because corn, I think, is a quintessential walk-around food.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy. You hold on to the shuck, and
you got a paper towel. Yeah. It's been dipped in butter. You put a little seasoning on it, and you just walk around and eat it. So walk around corn.
Anything healthy at the fair?
Well, I mean, we do. That has become, you know, more popular of late. You know, and healthy is a relative term. We have a few gluten-free items. We have some things that are on the healthier side. I always like to say whenever I'm talking about the fair in advance of the fair that this is not the time to be on a diet.
Right.
You know, you can diet the 350, 6 days a year or whatever the number is, but you don't want to be dieting during the 11 days of the fair. This is your cheat days.
Yeah.
You want to come out and indulge in these food items that are not readily available throughout the year. So don't diet during the 11 days. That's counterintuitive.
37 years with the state fair, the great state fair of Oklahoma. How many more years do you have in you for the great state fair of Oklahoma?
That's a good question. My boss, when he started a couple of years ago, and I think I was 71 or 2 at the time, he said, what's your exit strategy? And I said, well, I really don't know. At the time, I said, I would like to get at least both my girls through college and at least one of them married, because those were some big expenses or whatever that Lisa and I as a family would have had to, you know, take care of. So both girls have graduated from the University of Oklahoma with journalism degrees, so I checked those 2 off. And one, as I said, Sierra's getting married in 2 weeks. So I'm at the point where I've hit my hit my list.
Yeah.
Now, what I told Kirk was I said, because I am the spokesperson and things like that I'm doing here today, as long as I can still maintain and not embarrass myself or the company when the red light comes on, I'll continue to do it because I truly do enjoy what I do. And as they say, you know, anybody who enjoys what they do never works a day in their life. I know that sounds kind of corny, but I do enjoy what I do, and I know it's a little labor intensive and a little bit more stressful come fair time, but I'm an A-type personality, and I strive on that. So I don't know. I say, he goes, can you get me till 80? I go, well, I'll see. You know, and again, good Lord willing, I don't know. You know, as long as I have my health, and there is some question on getting out of bed in the morning sometimes, just as anybody. But as long as I have my health and as long as I can maintain and remember the things I'm supposed to remember when that red light comes on, I'll continue to do it because, you know, I don't have anything else to do. I'd have to volunteer somewhere, and then, as they say, you know, you leave your paying job, you end up volunteering somewhere. You work just as long, and you get paid nothing.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
So, you know, I don't want to be I had nothing against a museum or the Cowboy Hall or whatever. I don't want to be a docent out there.
Yeah,
you know.
Do you have any hobbies?
I enjoy being outdoors. I mean, anything outdoors. I still go to the pool on weekends. My kids coming with me. I play a little golf. I'm horrible. And I won't say it on the air because it's a little crass, but there's a Toby Keith song about a not so good golfer, and that really sums up my game. I mean, I enjoy getting out there. I don't want anybody giving me any lessons out there. I don't want anybody critiquing my swing. I just want to go out there and have fun. And if I do record my score, which I very seldomly do, if I break 125, so what? You know, I'm not out there to impress anybody. I'm not trying to get on the senior tour. Right. I enjoy a nice golf course. I don't want to play a cow pasture. I want to play a nice, aesthetically pleasing course. Okay. And there's plenty of them here in Oklahoma, but that's about my only thing. And then just spending my time with my family because I did start late. I didn't have my first kid till I was 49. Oh. So I cherish every moment that I can because I am on the back nine, you know, and I cherish every moment that I can spend with them. And I'm really looking forward to this wedding.
This town, OKC, is sponsored by Carpenter Square Theater because they let me record in the rehearsal studio. Post-production by Fred O. Bishop. It's a Lippert Media production. Scott Munz, thank you so much for your time today. Fascinating stories.
My pleasure, and I only told you the ones I could tell you. This time I'll have to tell you off the mic.
Yeah, same here. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.